Hello and welcome to the in-news series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Devedi, and in this segment today we are going to discuss about South Korea's anti-Google law. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims and also from the perspective of GS mains papers. So let's begin with the topics of discussion that we are going to look at step by step. Starting with the news, we will cover all these topics gradually. And in the news, this is because for the first time ever, a country with the help of a legislation has come cracking down on the monopolistic practices of big daddy companies, that is Google and Apple. However, the name suggests that it is anti-Google, but it is not anti-Google. It is also against monopolistic practices of any tech company which tries to capitalize on its monopolistic or the only sole presence. Okay, so let's talk about this segment in detail. South Korea has become the first country, as discussed, to come cracking down on monopolistic practices of Google with respect to in-app purchases. First, let's understand what are in-app purchases. In-app purchases can be understood from very simple terms. Suppose I have developed a gaming app. Here, the players of the app, in the app of the game, will get access to many benefits by purchasing them. Okay, suppose an upgradation of the level or more weapons or amenities for playing the game in a better manner. This costs 30 rupees. And I, as an app developer, has come in terms or into agreement with Google or Apple that whenever any consumer will make a purchase from inside the app, they will use the payment system of Google or Apple, either of them. Okay, so this is the entire issue. Now here lies the monopoly. If I will have an agreement with either Google or Apple, and through the in-app purchase system, I am able to generate a revenue of $1 million, then I have to pay 15% of the commission to Google. And on the other hand, if I succeed in making more than $1 million of revenue, then I will have to pay 30%. Now, if I develop my own in-app purchase system, I will be able to make better profit, but Google and Apple, because they are huge markets, they are big tech. So that is why, in order to retain their monopolistic abilities, they are not letting me have my own in-app purchase system. So this is the entire issue. Okay, moving on. In very simple terms, I made you understand. So there are certain criticisms of in-app purchase system. First criticism is that it is unsafe because the credit card or debit card or UPI, these card knowledges or the UPI knowledge will be available to any app. First is the criticism that it is unsafe. Secondly, because it is virtual in nature and inside the app only, then any child can make the purchase through the app and parents will come to know about it at a later stage. Second criticism is that, okay, so it's unsafe and it may also propel the children to make unreasonable expenses over such apps. Okay, then moving on, let's talk about this news piece. This is the last year's news piece, and Google to enforce 30% take from in-app purchases from next year. And now as we see that this has faced widespread criticism. Moving on, let's talk about the entire issue. First issue is the widespread criticism on the practice of requiring app developers to use in-app purchasing system. As I made you understand what are in-app purchasing system, now I, as an app developer, I would not want to share most of the profit because this is my app and I want to have my fair share of revenue generation. But Google is not letting me, or Apple is not letting me do that. So 30% of the commission which Google and Apple make through the in-app purchase system. They say that we do it to maintain our market, Play Store and the rest. And features of the legislation, this prohibits the app market operators from using their monopolies to require such payment systems. Okay, so here it is saying that no, Google and Apple, although they will provide us a platform to buy and purchase apps, but in-app purchase system, it has to be opened out or opened up for other competitors and new entrants as well. And if they enter and they have their own in-app purchase system, they will not face any retaliation from Google or Apple. Suppose I am an app developer, I have developed a gaming app and I have my own in-app purchase system as well. Or supposedly I don't have my in-app purchase system, but I have come into terms with a third party who is providing me the in-app purchase system at a much less cost. So Google or Apple Store, if they will have any hassles when it comes to approving and uploading my app, which shall be available to the customers, that will be a retaliation. They will delay the process, or they will not let my app to appear on the Play Store or Apple Store. So that is another problem that this particular legislation wants to address. And it also allows South Korean authorities to investigate the operations of app markets and have a look in any sort of dispute or unfair trade practices. Moving on. So this is the news of the last year, and it brought to the fore the issues with Google's monopoly, and that was addressed by the US in an antitrust lawsuit. Antitrust lawsuit is actually a lawsuit which tries to provide free and fair market practices and which is consumer oriented as well as new entrants oriented. If we talk about India, the Competition Act of 2002 is an antitrust law. Moving on, here the history, if we talk about the history of the entire issue, has with antitrust and monopolistic practices. First, monopolistic practice can be like actions such as preventing third-party app stores from buying from Google ads on either search or YouTube. Google might have dominance on providing ads on Play Store or YouTube, but no other third party can have that access. So this is a monopolistic practice. Another, pre-installed apps. I buy a TV, a smart TV, and it comes pre-installed with Play Store. So that is also a monopolistic practice, coming in terms or agreement with different devices and charging fee on that. That is wrong. Another, in 2019, if we talk about from the Indian perspective, the Competition Commission of India had held Google guilty of misuse of its dominant position in the mobile Android market. Okay, this is the competition watchdog of India. Keep in mind. So, Google, again, this is the news of the last year, faced new antitrust case in the same field. That means providing pre-installed apps so that other new entrants don't have a chance. Moving on, let's talk about the newest ones. US, this is of September 2nd, 2021. US aiming new lawsuit at Google over ads. Now, passing off of the new legislation in South Korea will of course embolden other countries to move in a similar direction. But is there actually a need of a law from the Indian perspective? This is for you to understand with the help of this segment. Then, the most recent, Apple hit with antitrust case in India over in-app payments issue. Again, the same thing. Now, Apple in its defense has said because Google is doing it, similarly we are also doing it. But now Apple has actually opened up to more ventures when it comes to having other in-app purchase parties come into the picture. They are sending emails as well. So now Apple has recalibrated its stand. Paytm last year said that we want to have our own in-app purchase system, but because of the monopoly, this commission of 15 is to 30, 15 to 30% is actually a tax. And now in India, a very not well-known organization by the name of Together We Fight Society has said that Apple's policies are anti-competitive in India, and the allegations are similar to the Apple case that it is facing in Europe. So, of course, this legislation which has come has been welcomed not only in South Korea but also in India. A digital foundation, Alliance for Digital India Foundation, the name is that. So they are also very happy about this new legislation, and they are waiting and watching about a similar legislative process to come to fore in India as well. Moving on, let's talk about the significance. Why is digital market so significant? Because extreme returns to scale. Digital market is one of the very few markets where the investment is not a lot, but the returns are a lot, because it caters to a really wide section of people. Also, if we talk about network externalities. Now, network externalities means having one network to pass on its benefits to another network, and then it gives way to a gargantuan market system. That means we need to understand that one market, if it is dominated by one particular tech company, it will prove disastrous for other networks as well. Then role of data. Role of data is a lot, not only in the digital AI, artificial intelligence system, but also for future market development. If any tech company has a lot of information about my profile or anything, my details, they will try to cater to my demands or my needs through different apps in the future. So it's market on market which needs to be regulated. The impacts of this legislation is, of course, it will set precedent and embolden other countries, as I told you, to have a legislation of a similar manner. Like digital markets, law on digital market has been there in the European Union. Again, a bipartisan law is being considered in the US when it comes to the monopolistic practices of Google and Apple. And China is also working on the similar lines. India will in few days to come. Even if Apple has recalibrated its stand, Competition Commission of India will look into the past conduct of Apple as well. First impact, set precedent, fair competition. More and more new entrants, if they will get the space which is actually tapped by those monopolistic companies, they will of course feel more ways to innovate, and proper regulation will be there when it comes to the distribution of economies. Then consumer oriented. As consumers, if we will get more options, there will be less chances that we are vulnerable to exploitation. Then impacts on digital imperialism. Digital imperialism or colonialism means having huge dominant presence in the digital sphere and then exploiting the vulnerables because of the default or the inherent quality of being the monopolistic power there. Moving on, let's talk about the conclusion. We need to understand that there should be a balance between invisible hand of the market and visible hand of the regulator. So we need to ensure a balance between free market practices but fair as well. Need for data regulation. These legislations will of course pave way for more legislations to come that will give a concrete and robust support to data regulation. Fair digital taxation as well, as these monopolistic companies, they earn a lot from dense and youthful countries such as India, as the number of Apple phone users, although it's just 2% of 520 million of mobile users as of 2020, but the number of Apple phone users has grown many times, 5 times, in fact, if we talk about from the last decade. So that is very important, that we need to understand it is going to grow and we need to have a robust support system from the very beginning. Moving on. So, I just said digital taxation is important because a monopolistic company which is earning a lot from a country like India needs to give back to the society. Moving on. Let's talk about our means-based question, okay? Discuss the issues related to unfair trade practice in digital space in the light of South Korea's anti-Google law. We have to write it in 250 words. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.